So this is my
Okay,
Gantt
sorry,
chart.
I'm recording it at the moment. Yeah, you don't. I hope you don't mind me recording it.
No.
On
Okay,
request.
okay.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is let's say okay. We have 15 weeks, right, in a semester. So there are 15 weeks. So assuming dissertation proposal is all done, so maybe just the first 2 weeks just to kind of rough things up, patch things up. So these are my initial chapters for my thesis. So as you can see, I just put that subtopic. I have no idea what it is. Finalized chapter. How many words is it for each topic? And the conclusion. And obviously the whole thing is 25,000, including the dissertation proposal. So that's the amount of words I'll probably need to write on a weekly basis.
Okay. So I noticed that your timeline includes word count.
Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, this is like, you know, yeah.
Does it help? Like, does it make it when you put in the word?
It helps because then you know, shit, I have to write that much amount of words, you know. And I know, I mean, I'm also not. I mean, writing is not really our. I don't know. I mean, like, you know, not my forte. Language is not my forte. Yeah. So I mean, more comfortable making things, making models, you know, that kind of stuff. So yeah. Yeah, so it looks like a daunting task. Like, it looks like, okay, so at least you know what you're going to face with. So to me, this is important for me. Yeah, I wish I've done it earlier for my proposal, which I didn't, but it's okay. Yeah.
Okay, no, thank you. Any questions for Yusra, or anyone wants to add anything on how they are actually doing this? Because essentially all of you have done a Gantt chart. I've never know what a Gantt chart is until I joined UM. Before this, at the university where I was sort of like trained in, it was a sink and swim scenario. It's just basically whether you sort of like produce the work or you don't, right? And then we have to figure it out ourselves. So most of the time we didn't even have like, all these tools. And but the nice thing is that, there's so much stuff available online now that I'm also learning as I go along. And it feels like over time, my sense is breaking it down to word by word count always helps on my part. I don't know what you guys feel. And I would even break it down further, right? Maybe not to like 300 a day, but I would imagine I want to complete 1,000 words a week in this week, and then I'll try to hit that goal. Because that will then cover at least an argument that I'm trying to make, or a subtopic that I want to address. I don't know.
And also, I think creating a chapter, it's like, I mean, I usually do a lot of presentation, right, before. So in the presentation, I need to know what are the contents of what I'm going to present, and I work towards the content. So I think even in the thesis, I think it's good to do the chapters first, and then you need to fit in the chapters, the so-called chapters. Yeah, it may change, it may change. It's not perfect. It will change the Gantt chart, or it will change, but at least you have something to begin with. Yeah.
So has everyone else done your chapter outlines or thought about your chapter outlines?
I am struggling with shaping it, but because the last conversation we had, Simon, was you saw my chapter outlines and felt like it was a bit scientific as opposed to thematic, if that makes sense. And I'm trying to be more thematic now, but at the same time figuring out where do I lay out the information lah.
So not so much thematic, it's more like what is the narrative of your research, right? So rather than just spelling out the methodology and spending so much time telling us about the methodology,
Right.
What is the narrative that you want to tell?
Yeah, so it's also about figuring out, because you also still have to talk about how you do it, right? So I have to, what I did then, I pushed my methodology chapter into introduction also. So I basically make it smaller, but at the same time trying to fit in all the research design stuff, problem statement, everything all in introduction, and spend my chapter 2 to set up background where I deal with my literature review. And then I zoom in my chapter 3 into the into my data findings lah, my research findings, and I'm figuring out whether to illustrate it like a case study or just go researchers' personal voice, like this like journalistic style, because there are those articles that just goes on where they would narrate their experience observing students teaching or learning through online media. Yeah. And also how to explain my involvement as a researcher. It's a lot of figuring out how much do I talk about myself and my credibility as a practitioner, at the same time building this world that is already there, and trying to articulate it in a fair manner so it doesn't look so biased. So I think, yeah, it's quite hectic. I've come up with 5 chapters essentially now, but it's like Yusra with her Gantt chart, it is still like, yeah, it's an aim lah. At least like if I'm gonna write it out, if it sounds like a comic book story and doesn't sound like this, is I have to figure out how to make it sharper lah. But at least there's somewhere I could start from. Because I don't work in terms of like words as much as Yusra. I work in terms of like what I am trying to say and argue in. So I need to know that to move forward, or else I can't even move to a few hundred words. So my paper now is full of like sources on it, and it's quite messy lah. It's like digging and put it on top of a canvas. I just still have to like throw away the dust. I haven't spent time to do that yet. Yeah.
Do you find maybe trying to perhaps at least have a kind of rough outline of how much you want to devote to a specific idea, how much space you want to devote to a specific idea useful, like what Yusra has done? It could be useful for you, given that there is also the risk you might be going into a rabbit hole once you start digging for sources, right? And sometimes what we do is like collecting sources is a lot more, doesn't require so much brain space, like it's just collect and see, and you take things and you just get hoard, right? Like I have a hoarder symptom, so I rather spend time collecting things rather than actually processing things and actually producing things out of the things that I hoard, or even sort of just sharing things is a lot easier for me than just sitting down and actually working through those material. And what does maybe having a sort of like, if you're able to then sort of like divide your thesis into word count, do you think that helps with forcing you to sort of like?
Yeah, I think looking at Yusra and then hearing Clarissa's point and Dennis punya iteration of like 300 words a day, I feel like maybe it's time for me to scale it further lah. Because I think I've reached a point where I can kind of know where I put my cut list, where I put the data and the literature. But if I can scale it like how you guys did for your Gantt charts and aim it proper, I think then I cannot be too overwhelmed with how much I should collect. It's like curating a bit. Yeah.
Or putting a production, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a creative process as well.
Yeah.
But maybe just to make sure that everyone is on the same page, because what I realized also from yesterday, and it really helps that now we're also teaching the methods class, is that so much of a lot of students, and because all of you come from different batches, right? I also realized that a lot of students tend to refer to previous theses, and not all the previous theses are Well, of course they pass, and certainly maybe they can be emulated on some level, but not all of them have the ideal format. Just to make sure that we're on the right page, on the same page. So the stuff, what I've like shared in the chat box, these are presumably sections or things that you would have, topics that you have addressed in your proposal, right? You might not have all of them, and you might not have used the same words or phrasing, but nevertheless, in your proposal, you should have roughly some of these things, or most of these things, right? Correct? Yes, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's your proposal. So from this, you will have ideally your chapter 1 already. And that's chapter 1. Your methods and approach shouldn't spill into your chapter 2. It shouldn't be a separate chapter. And your literature review can, but if it is taken out and it's elaborated as a second chapter, the literature review normally also takes the form of a historical background, gives us historical background overview, or exploring a historical context and fleshing out a historical context or something like that. And that's when you have an expanded literature review. Or you might be doing some kind of historiographical research where you are looking at discourse analysis and all that. Then of course you would expand on your literature review. It wouldn't be just limited to chapter 1. But otherwise, if you're presenting sort of like new research on a topic, generally all of these things should be addressed in chapter 1, and that's 7,000 words max, or even less. I would say 5,000 to 7,000 you can. And then let's move on to your research. It's for you to present. The rest of the thesis is for you to present your research. I will only emphasize on this because I know in a lot of previous theses, there's a tendency for students to pad up their approach and method. And so they will dedicate chapters, one chapter to theory, one chapter to method. But essentially when they do that, they're not addressing the approach or the theory. They're just regurgitating what they read on approach or on a theory that they've chosen. So they'll read up on structuralism and then put down what they understand about structuralism. They'll read up on methodology, like they interview or I don't know, maybe archival research, and then sort of like use the entire chapter to talk about what they understand or how they define method, which is not useful because it doesn't show how you apply these methods to your research or what you get out of applying these approaches to your research. So we're trying to discourage students from, using that approach. That might be what we call a more scientific approach or whatever. It might work. It might make more sense in a science context, but definitely in the arts context, it doesn't make any sense at all. Because you're not expected to demonstrate that you know what psychoanalysis is. It is already assumed that you know what psychoanalysis is. How you demonstrate that you actually know what it is you have to show that you are able to apply it to your research project. It is more about the relevance of that approach and a theory to your research project, and you need to demonstrate that rather than actually focusing on trying to define or tell us what the theory or the method is. I mean, this only really sort of like came to me very recently, so that's why I wanted to sort of at least highlight this one. Is that clear? I don't know.
Yeah, that's definitely clearer because like knowing where you can spend time to put your research data that you find and how you have analyzed it and discuss about the finding feels much more of the work rather than reiterating your proposal. And it's really comfortable to hear that your proposal is or the things that you have wrote down for that is just all in your 7,000 worded intro per se. And yeah, I think with that compartment and that space, I think I can see a picture more lah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think then the counter question would be like, how do we begin to frame the research? Like what kind of
the rest of the words.
exactly the bigger question.
The next wait, okay, let's say 4,000. The next 14,000 words.
Yeah, and also choosing the images of your data, because that also will be included. I mean, how do you want to paint this finding that doesn't look so that people understand how you got into your ideas and doesn't look like you're just drawing pictures out of nowhere. Yeah.
Okay. So when you read something that you feel like they've just attached a picture out of nowhere, what do you think is what do you find is lacking in the way they have maybe approached what they've included, or how they've used the image?
Yeah, I think it's really about how to map out your data into a visual language that the reader can understand what it means with your chapter . Yeah, and I think the reason why I said like sometimes it feels like it's coming out of nowhere is because it's also about, I guess, conviction to a certain extent of you as a researcher interpreting your data.
What data do you have? Can you maybe be more? Can you just tell us a bit more?
Okay, I roughly have interviews that I've broken down and did a thematic analysis on. I have a few keywords.
How many interviews? Like,
I have 3 interviews that I have broken down. 4 actually, but it's in 3 projects. And then I have also field work notes, rather the images of my process with these groups, and also the publications or collaterals that comes out from the collaboration lah. Yeah, and it's like a lot of puzzles of images towards the research work that I did. And then how do I align the field work and the post fieldwork interview at the same time, connect with my larger research question, which is how are artists adapting in time of COVID while their project is still ongoing or not? Yeah, through these 3 programs. So how to compose this data, both interview and fieldwork notes, I think it's really...
When you say compose, you mean what? Like, how do you tell a story out of this? Or...
Yes, how do I tell a story in the chapter 4 of my finding and chapter 3 of my process? Yeah, I think it's really that, because it's a lot of things being 7,000 worded, being like being compacted into such small paragraphs. Yeah. So I have to be concise. I think I'm struggling with
that. Sorry, help us to understand what is the small paragraph you're talking about, and what do you need to compact?
Oh, my findings and trying to fit into this thesis lah.
Okay.
And then do justice when I represent it in this text. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a bit daunting in that sense.
Okay.
But that requires a lot of time with swimming in the data also. So yeah.
So you have done whatever that you call coding, right? And from that coding process, okay, why don't you walk us through what this coding means? Because I don't think all of us.
I can kind of like share with you guys a rough.
Yes.
My messy paper.
Okay. just a refresher that this is what you have. This is your data. Okay, for interview, post-field work, ethnographic notes during the field, which are your field notes, and then collaterals of the collaboration that you have done. And quickly tell everyone, what your project is about. So, okay.
Right. So this is the title of my thesis for now, Arts Community in Time of COVID-19. The project is about looking into 3 programs that are ongoing during the COVID outbreak from 2019 to 2020, and kind of look how they have adapted throughout COVID lah. So the research questions are essentially
so what's the problem statement?
Oh, the problem statement is the current COVID-19 outbreak is still happening. And we do not know when it's going to end. And I think vaccination is around, but how are arts institutions still mitigating their projects which are scheduled, because nobody's expected MCO 3.0 to happen, the rise of cases to happen again amidst vaccination. And then also the second problem statement is that there are a lot of relief plans that are given out. So Cendana gave out arts organization funding program, and 5Arts have used it already, but how much of that have helped them sustain their location, given that they now have to move out from TTDI because their renters do not want to, their owners do not want to give them lease anymore. Yeah.
So sorry, for the past 2 semesters, I've been hammering on this, and this is a new thing for me. Yeah? So every semester, so I change a bit, right? But what is your main problem statement?
Is to discover how artists are adapting through coronavirus,
So
because
that's your objective. So what is your problem statement?
The representation of how we can support the arts in the news is essentially very economical centric. It's all about funding and giving support, but it doesn't necessarily discuss about what artists do in this institution and the task that they have to go through, and how much of the funding actually goes to the practitioner versus the project itself. So is it really helping or adding more work? And to understand this is to go to artists and kind of look, how does this support relates to experiences, but and looking at the experiences of the artists to realize actually what are the support system that's already there also. Yeah, and is actually working. Who can talk to who, maybe, or who isn't talking to who? And from this particular situation of the artist, what is this artist's role today versus the painter, the Renaissance artist, and today's artist, where forms are now more socially engaged in terms of work. Yeah. So this particular problem statement is to be discovered through these 3 samples that I've chosen, Arts Ed, 5Arts Center, and Japan Foundation Kuala Lumpur, which I managed to participate throughout the COVID period of 2019 to 2020. Yeah. And I think when I want to discuss about my findings, what I really mean is how do I explain what I went through, the strategies that I observed they took via canceling the program, via not even communicating because nobody knows how to communicate. So Japan Foundation spent 6 months of delay and suddenly recollect and call the artist to work again. And the artist only has 3 months to materialize a full research made the teamwork. And there's a lot of using existing knowledges of the artist to build a more contemporary work through COVID. Although in the end of the day, what happened with Maywe, especially the exhibition, we only had 3 days of exhibition versus 3 months that was promised. So for JFKL, the exhibition is done. Financially, the fiscal year is checked. They have done their funding. They have completed the project as agreement. But for the curators, they felt like they have lost the meaning that they needed when they intended to make during the exhibition. There is this intrinsic meaning of the engagement of audience versus online display of this space that is empty of body. Yeah. And I think I want to discuss more the effects of this adaptation strategies of going online, of changing schedules, of rushing also, because have to meet certain organizational fiscal year. So Five Arts took a different approach where they just cancel all their programs and open their empty space to the public. But then again, MCO rose, and then they had to go online, but they found a different strategy in doing that with Liao Buitin's play, a 70s playwright. And I think that is also quite a successful production as compared to KLPAC online productions. Yeah. So I think, yeah, this is where I am at, trying to fit the noise into this paper. I will definitely scale it, listening from Dennis, Yusra, and everyone about the amount of words. I think that would help me to just, limit myself.
So you don't, I mean, you have enough words. It's more like trying to at least shave off and take off some of these sort of like words until we get the gist of the story. And you have some kind of a narrative already. So so I'm struggling to understand what is your challenge.
I'm just tired. It's dragging myself to do it, because it's hard when you're also like trying to build your world and also updating your research, because I think my issue now is with time. Now it's almost 2022, so the project may not necessarily, the findings may not necessarily has impact now. So what do I have to do? Do I have to come back and observe, catch up a bit with ArtsEd, Five Arts, and JFKL, and looking where they're at, just to reach with the time. So I think that is my
But one way is to think of how you can frame your research as well, about not as something that needs to definitely be the most up-to-date kind of report, right? But capturing a particular historical window within the big pandemic, especially when the outbreak just happened and how response happened at the initial phase. And then, you can provide an update, and later on, maybe in your conclusion or in the 4th chapter or something like that, if you feel like you need to supplement that. If you don't feel like you need to provide a live update, you can frame it in a way that this is offering us a look into a particular historical window, a particular time, and especially and crucial because this is when the outbreak just happened and everyone was scrambling for answer. And so that's the focus of your thesis, but you can always sort of like, tie it back to the contemporary or what is present today with a concluding reflection.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we're not journalists. Clarissa, do you want to add on that? I want to find my water bottle as well.
Okay. Yeah, we're not journalists, that's all. Don't worry, dude.
Thanks. Sorry. Okay, I stopped sharing.
I think I stopped share.
Yeah, but continue.
Oh, Simon's back. You found your water bottle?
Wow, 5 minutes.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Anyone wants to add to that? I mean, how else are you guys working on your project? I mean, I hope this is also helpful for those who just start. I mean, you're just beginning on your writing phase, like, as you know what is expected of you. I know that if previously we weren't very good at offering that transition between, I think the challenge is, I think people, we're still not quite good at offering that transition from the transition phase from, having done your proposal in your methods class. How do you transit from that point to?
I have not particular, maybe like feedback or I don't know, top question. Is there sort of techniques or skills to support maybe non-linear writing process? Because I see today a lot of you guys, it seems a little bit linear to me, and I don't write in that way. But from my point of view, at least I tried putting yourself in this very boxy, very step-by-step type, sometimes make you feel like you're doing progress, but you're not progressing at all. So is there like a writing tips that you can give Simon that support the kind of thinking you want to do lah? Not really like, yeah, so it's like exploratory, but you're at the same time putting yourself to think, because sometimes putting in these boxes, you're not really thinking, you're just like vomit out word, which is not necessarily what I want to do. So how to do that more productively, I guess?
You can either this works for me lah, and I always find this very helpful for some reason, because I think it is also a word limit that it challenges you to sort of like write in a sustained manner, but it's done in it also has a word limit, so that it forces you to think about the restraint, right? It creates a restraint that forces you to be creative about what you choose to sort of say, write on Instagram. You can create an anonymous account, or you
publish something to get it out.
Or you don't have to have a follow. You don't even need a follower base, but I think Instagram is a good platform for me, at least, because it has, I think, a 2,400 word limit. 2,400 word character. So 2,400 character word limit, and so you can only write that much. But within the 2,400 character, you can actually write a lot, or at least you can deliver a cogent, complex argument, which is not a one sentence topic sentence statement. You can put in a topic statement, and also, and this is a good way to train you to think about what topic statement is, and then how you elaborate on topic statements, right? So I find it productive, because then it's also much more collagey, in a way that you are able to think about a specific issue, and then on a specific day you want to work on that issue, address that issue, and the idea is then completely presented in a form of at least a chunk of words that you can later on elaborate on. For me, that works, but I don't know if other people have other techniques.
Yeah, I get you. I'm using sort of similar approach, but I call it like permanent notes. So like this note, I'm going to use this for my whatever thesis or writing output. So like instead of thinking in terms of word count, I think in the day, I need to do this amount of permanent notes. So at least 2 permanent notes a day. That's how I kind of like transverse myself to think. I can't really, like Yusra, like I know you did the workout, it just doesn't work for me because it stressed the hell out of me. But I kind of like the non-linear way, I do it that way. So if anyone,
what do you call it? Permanent notes?
Yeah, so there's this book, How to Take Smart Notes. So basically you don't there's a different stage of notes, but basically you're writing lah. So at the level that Simon is saying, it's like, to me, I call it permanent notes. So instead of thinking in like I have to write 1,000 words a day, I don't do that. So instead I'm like, okay, every day I need to write at least 2 permanent notes. So if I do that, I know eventually once I put up my outline or something, I can like just cherry pick and choose and consolidate my permanent notes lah, basically.
Okay.
It's like a chunk of ideas, but in like a note.
Then when do you think it's the right time to then
when your permanent note hit critical mass that enables you to actually like have enough notes to kind of think lah and like write that outline or output that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So for me at this stage now, I'm not hitting critical mass yet because I still need to consolidate a few more. I have already a few notes, but yeah, it's not critical mass yet. So I'm like just doing as I go and fill it up.
And are you hitting your 2 permanent notes a day target?
Yeah, at least the very least I do like 1 permanent note-ish. Because I have a backlog of literature notes that I haven't yet turned into permanent notes. If you get what I mean? Because I haven't connected them yet for my writing process.
Okay. When you say permanent notes, so it could take the form of an annotated bibliography as well.
It's not annotated bibliography. So annotated bibliography is like a literature note. So there's 3 different. I can like go on about this, but a permanent note is sort of like, if you guys can think of a
you have
tripod.
something to share with us? Maybe it would help us.
Um,
Thank you so much.
I can share. There's this Rome book club, but it's I can give you guys the. So there's this guy who's an actor that teach you how to who started this book club, but it's actually he's giving you prompts to
What
write.
about yours?
Because
Can
the
you
book club
share-
is about how to take smart notes.
Are you able to share something from
I can share his YouTube because the book club is already closed. So his YouTube shared the sort of material he does online and he shared over his YouTube. So you guys can go through that. But it's a long process, but I can share the book. But if you guys too malas to read the book, you can just Google how to take smart notes on YouTube. A lot of people have been doing that. But I'm doing it particularly over Rome research. I don't think it works for any like Word document. So, but if you guys wanna talk to me personally over this, you can like DM me and you can like go on and show my Rome. But maybe not here, like, because it's too complicated to.
Okay, but you okay, it's fine. It's fine if you're not comfortable sharing your permanent notes here. Yeah, don't worry about it. Okay, can you? Yeah.
Yeah, I do, but I don't know. It doesn't sound like
Okay, I can show like a little bit, maybe a
Hmm.
little bit, give you guys an idea. Yeah, let me open up the graph.
I mean, while waiting for Husna, the problem that I have with writing stuff in the book is like sometimes I don't remember where I write it, right? It's all over. But then I try the like Miro mind mapping. I mean, like, because it's a huge canvas, right? But it's great because it's limited, it's infinite. But then at the same time, I don't like doing things digitally.
Mm.
So don't know, might
You create a
try.
physical mind map then, or like a
Yeah, digital mind map.
maybe
That's the
it's
thing.
called
I quite like maybe the sticky note. Or maybe I'll go back to sticky note on the wall. I think that, and then I can just move the sticky note. You know. Okay. Anyway, sorry, Krishna.
Yeah, can you guys see my page? So
Okay.
I guess this one, in a way, this is an index of the notes. If you can see the amount here is how many times I like reference it, which is a little bit sikit lagi lah. So, but then to get this stage, you will take
What do you mean
requires quite.
reference it? I don't
Sorry.
understand. What do you mean reference it?
It means in my notes I have referenced it in my
You have
Uh,
references. Oh,
very complicated. It's like I have mentioned this or use it in how many times I've used it in 2 notes.
you mean a note that has been also referred to in 2 other notes?
So the note that I've been doing every day,
Uh-huh.
whether or not I connected it is twice. In some way, like some format. So if I haven't got to this stage means I'm not I haven't reached connection yet lah. So I'm trying to hit critical mass in this way so that eventually once I have them, I can just drag and drop. It's like sticky notes, but you can see like the workflow, I guess. So that's why I'm saying like the process of thinking, at least I've done the thinking. So when I'm actually writing, I'm no longer doing the thinking. Because previously the linear one I tried, I noticed that I'm thinking and writing at the same time, and then I end up not writing at all because I feel like a failure or imposter syndrome hits. And this kind of avoids that because I'm focusing and separating between thinking and writing itself. Don't know if that helps, but yeah, so I'm this is the permanent notes a little bit upper level. So I have my literature notes that I haven't brought up here yet. So it means I haven't done the connection. So
So what would you put inside, say within an actual entry?
Sorry?
What is in the
So
actual?
if you just look at the chapter where I'm going to talk about theoretical framework, or a chapter on just, I'm going to talk about power, then I'm just going to take this whole whatever comes under power. So that could be the whole manuscript of just power.
So this is your note on power.
Yes.
So can we?
I need to tidy line and need to connect the note that I've done.
Krishna, I think they want to see what you wrote about power.
Yeah, let's
Um,
one example.
maybe this
Yeah,
one code.
break down one of the hashtags that you got there.
If you hit here,
So we know like what is.
oh, okay. If you look at the competition, my notes under fleeting notes is not like the whole notes I have. But this is just one thought. It's not. That's why I say I haven't hit critical mass yet. But like I dah ada lah dekat sini what I can write. So as like one pointer, one key mentee, or what Simon called one idea. Was that what's you're calling it?
Yeah.
I
Feel like
yeah, that's why I'm saying like non-linear writing. I feel like the whole class that the class methodology approach didn't really talk so much about this kind of process. It's more like, oh, as if you already done the thinking, you're doing that. So I feel like the last methodology class didn't really like approach or help students who think in this way, which so if someone else want to talk to me,
then to
privately,
think
like,
in what way? To think in what way?
how to say, so when you write, let's say you want to write 1,000 words, what are you guys writing? It feels like you guys already assume you already know what to write. So where are you taking that points from? Right? Because I think Dennis mentioned that you don't write because you don't know what to write. Yeah, so so how do you support that part where you don't know what to write about? So I think that in the methodology class didn't really support this kind of approach. Like it's assumed as if you already know what to do, which and
I mean, it is assumed in the past, it was always assumed lah. So, but it's interesting that you point this out, because I also just assume that people should know, right?
Yeah, I guess you have, like, you can say you have an outline, but again, sometimes having an outline, it feels like you're doing the work, but you're not doing the work. You get what I mean? It's like it makes us if, or you already done the thinking, but you haven't done the thinking.
I think
So
the
how is
assumption
this
comes
different from an outline?
This is doing the work before the outline. So once I go to the outline stage, I just drag and drop and then later on turn it into a manuscript. I haven't done that yet, but for people who want to know more, I can show it. But this is definitely a different style, I would say, because it's very, very non-linear, but it works for me. That's why I say when you ask me, you have to write 500 words a day. What are you guys writing about? To reach that stage where eventually your thesis will support, because you can write 500 words, but it's not supporting your thesis. It's kind of like waste of time juga.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
my thing is always go back to your problem statement.
Outline.
yeah. So
Problem statement.
that's why when I put it in this index format, it kind of already support what my problem statement are, or what my visual or my aim for the thesis. So I know I already put like my theoretical framework here at least, so that once I have a note, I can frame it in my index. So it's like, how to say, it's like going bottom up, but also like from top to bottom kind of writing. I don't know. But yeah, I think I tried the linear way of writing, like the methodology class. I find a lot of issue trying to write in that way. So this is how I approach it. And so hopefully, I do feel a little bit better because at least I know what I'm thinking or where I'm going with it, or where I'm where I need to put my work lah, because I'm not finishing it yet. But I'm going to stop sharing now.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Anyone wants to comment? Is that helpful? Maybe we can all try. I'll be keen to sort of like try. So you're using Roam research? Is that what you use?
Yeah, Roam research works for what I'm doing because they have this concept called bidirectional linking. So like you guys see my blue colored notes, actually under that is a note itself. So I don't have to book up multiple Word document. I can just do all of it over Roam. And the other one, at one block, they call it block. That block itself, I can reference it. And with Roam itself, I've already have a plugin with my Zotero plugin, which is how I do my referencing. I can just drag and drop block basically, and eventually once I bring it up to my Word document, I can already reference it using Zotero.
You know, I still do everything manually.
I can't
Yeah.
just do everything manually.
Me too, Simon. I'm a manual person. I have manual
I
folders,
constantly
manual notes.
How many tools are there out there in this day and age to facilitate like scholarship production?
No, referencing manually just kills me. I would rather write more permanent notes than do it manually.
I still do my every single footnote
Like
manually.
my papers are stacked.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know how you guys
I'll
do
use
it.
is probably the formatting of Word document, right? Which is
I think I get really dyslexic if you ask me to do it manually. I just don't know how you guys can go through one by one and put it in one by one, because it feels so much work. Like if you have 50, that's already like a lot.
and I know my sources as a result. I know what they
That's
are.
good.
I when people ask me, I know what I'm dealing with because I read through everything and I've typed out everything before. And I've dealt with everything. I mean, yeah, maybe that's why a lot of students cannot remember where they get their sources from, or they don't remember the names of the authors. I was trying to figure out why.
So do you do it like as you go, or you wait for one day to do it all 50? Yeah.
Oh, I went. You mean on a thesis level?
Yeah, like you just like collect.
Yeah, it took me 2 months to do it. I mean, this is like writing like 90,000 word thesis, right? So that took me about 2 months to focus solely on building up doing the footnotes and cleaning it up.
Yeah, but I don't know. I haven't started writing yet. But I assume actually in the beginning you probably write less, and then towards because you're also collecting info, you're gathering your thoughts, and I think the crunch time. I don't know when that is the last.
But you're also doing your revision at the same time. It's not like you're just doing your footnotes. You're doing revision. You are revising, so you always need time to revise your thesis. It's not like you write one round and it's finished, right? You have to constantly go back and make sure it aligns. So the process is as you clean up, you also sort of like align your writing. But that's the old way lah. I mean, now it's helpful to know that there are all these tools. So I'm actually going to make notes of them and share them. Let's see. So you find it challenging that students we probably need to help facilitate. Okay, I got it down as doesn't help students to think if we're writing 1,000 words, what do you write?
Like for example, like do you all read all your stuff only in a soft copy? Like I can't. I need to print. So I waste a lot of paper, but I can't read. I don't know.
I have to do soft copy because there's too many, and also when you highlight it, I can take my highlights and put it into my text, or put it into another program where I can note take, like what Husna is doing. Yeah, or else I can't. I think it's important. Of course, I before I used to print it out as well, when I was studying in architecture. But then now I think there's too much data, and it's really important to process the data that you have, or the kind of literature that you're reading.
And you use what, Obsidian?
Yeah, I use Obsidian to write. I write annotated bibliographies about the
You
text.
want to quickly just share? I don't know. Just give us a sense of your methodology as well, so that.
So like, mine's a lot. Well, right now this one is just about my annotated bib.
It's like you are Sherlock. Oh my God! You gave me like it's like a Zen puzzle, like that.
So like these are my extracted annotations from the PDF, and then if I want to know which part of the PDF it's in, wait, you guys are looking at it, right? I can't tell anymore. Yeah, and then I just click, and then it opens to the PDF at the right place where I annotated it, so it saves me a lot more time. Yeah. So for example, I highlighted this, and I extract it, put it here. Then over here, I'm writing about that text.
If it's like archival material, like government files, that is sort of cursive and
that's harder lah.
Yeah,
that's something
but you can still do it, right? With this,
you have to go to your OCR reader or something.
No, you probably have to just transcribe it.
Transcribe it, yeah, right? The OCR can't read it. You can still do that.
So how do you do the link? It's automated.
Oh, there's a method that I think I sent it in the group last time, but let me find it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, why don't we hear from also Jen, Shukri, Fatima? I mean, are all these helpful, or do you think they're or even Dennis, like Ali? What do you feel about some of these suggestions and tools that are they helpful, or do they help you to sort of like organize your material or get you thinking about writing? Does it address what your concerns are in the first place? Dennis, you came with a very specific concern, right? How do you translate?
I don't think the solution, the how do you say, the solutions given by like Zotero and what's the other one, Obsidian. Yeah, I don't think that's my problem. I think my problem is
on interpretation.
I know there are these materials, and then what do I do with them? I know.
So let's walk us through specific materials that you have. Share with us something, then let's think about what you're talking. Yeah, can you? So yeah, I understand what you're saying. Maybe your question is more about how do you interpret the data? How do you make it meaningful? Like, we can collect all these materials, we can organize them, we can sort of like shape them into a form, but how do we even, what are the critical tools that, how do we even sort of like make the best use out of them? Is that right?
Yeah. One second.
But actually, Dennis, I feel like you have already been doing it on some level in your Instagram post. I mean,
is like-
compared to
it's
10
like
years ago, I
sometimes-
mean, compared to 2 years ago, I don't know you for 10 years, but compared to 2 years ago, you've done a lot of these much more interpretive kind of like writing. So
Yeah, I'm just
what,
like trying.
what got you to this stage where you feel more confident and able to, share and communicate how you are actually sort of like looking around a particular object, a site, or a document? From
Thanks,
just, looking at it and being fascinated by it, now you actually have an idea. You're able to collate information and craft it into a narrative, into an argument, into something that you want to say about the object or the thing. So how
did I
did
get
you
there?
learn? Yeah, how did you get there?
I think I just do it, and then on the other hand, I think for me, I think the affirmation that I get from my friends and also you is what motivates me to do it more, and being able to do it. I think that is actually the thing that drives me to be able to do it, I feel. So
What so now that I think maybe you have a basic skill already, what do you think? How do you? What do you find? What do you continue to find challenging?
because you see,
Yeah, if you want to show us some stuff, maybe let's talk through specific things. Then we can all figure it out together, right?
I mean, I have like made all this like paper clippings of things like that.
Mhm.
But then there's so many, and I don't know when to stop. And by the time I arrive at like, I don't know, 200 item 200, I've forgotten what I had before.
Okay.
feel like
this
you
is
need
nice.
a archival
I like it.
method, but this is really great. You need to tag like attributes to all of this,
That's
Oh.
like dates and times and locations.
Yeah, exactly.
That's something you can do on Airtable, right, Husna?
Well, if you don't, the Airtable is, well, I mean, doing in Excel is fine too, right? But you know what, I was actually, before joining this class, wait, let me share with you the link. Listening to this rather excellent talk on how to use spreadsheets in the humanities.
Oh, awesome.
Let me find the link.
It's actually Excel you can still group.
So whatever spreadsheet that you want to use, right? Whether it's Airtable, Excel, whatever. But this is actually a really good breakdown on how to sort of make those data she calls it manipulatable. How do you turn data into something that you can manipulate so that you can do actual analytical work with it? So my sense is, from what you have shared, maybe Dennis, do you want to go back to it quickly? For example, like what Clarissa said, immediately when I look at what you have compiled, I imagine if you have a column on dates, you could already very easily computationalize how, have it arranged according to a timeline.
Oh, I do have the year.
So okay, then perfect. So you can already sort of like create a timeline. So you can already sort of like get a sense of a narrative, right? Once you are able to organize it according to the year. Playing around with these sort of like variables can help you to sort of, extract information out of it. So I know maybe, but I think you are probably more concerned with what kind of information, what kind of story you can tell out of like this string of stuff, right? This pile of material. Well, without going into without knowing the specific sort of like content, my sense is I generally, when I work with newspapers, is look out for opinion pieces or letters, because then those are the types of writing in newspaper that will give you a position. You know that it's stating a position, right? You look out for opinions, you look out for, a statement, you look out for people with actually a view or an idea of things, not just stating facts. There's a lot of newspaper report that's just factual. That's not so helpful because it doesn't drive narrative. It flashes out context and background. Like, when this is founded, when that is founded, yeah, okay, when this is, when an exhibition took place. Okay, it's not to say that they're not useful, they're definitely useful, but those are just things that helps you to flesh out the background. But opinions then sort of like gives you insight into, how people think about certain issues and help you to empathize and think about, put yourself in the shoe of, or at least have a conversation with the person who's actually sort of like making a statement like that, and get you to start thinking, what would have led that person to, say it that way, and all that. And I always feel working with those materials more helpful and more useful, especially when dealing with a lot of information, such as like newspaper clippings.
I'm trying to draw a link between, for my chapter 3, I'm trying to draw a link between British hunting, like expedition and hunting, with as a sort of activity that complements the museum, or.
So talk through the museum mascot, right? The Sledang. Like, take the Sledang as this mascot figure that everyone talks about. Everyone has an opinion about that stupid cow that's been shot near the museum, and it's
that cute.
And there's a legend that's built up around it. So on that level, it's also taking something that is that's part of the museum history, maybe, and that it's something that constantly appear in museum literature or references that are connected to the museum, and everyone perhaps also have a kind of like soft spot and affection for it. You can turn it into something quite comic, and through that comic, that comedic kind of like quality of the object, maybe find something interesting to say about the museum, about the nature of the museum and what the museum community was like, which then answers at least back to your problem statement. It's just that you don't pay attention to enough to the kind of like these other sort of like stories, right? That makes the museum a community.
Yeah, I think this also draws the that thesis that you shared with me. Forgot the name, but the Sarawak one. Yeah. What's the name? Forgot.
Jennifer Morris? No.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Jennifer Morris, where she for each chapter, she begins her chapter with like a particular collection or a particular object. Yeah. I mean, I know that she adopts this way of writing, but I still couldn't see how I could use it for my context.
Well, you don't have to use that approach, but I mean, even if you want to focus on more thematic issue, you can always start with something and then use it to telescope. Like the Sledang, which is, one of the first few animals that was shot by Sayers, right? Within the vicinity of, within proximity of the museum, as that kind of like, at least a story that can help you, that can sort of like ease us into this thing about colonial hunting and collecting and expeditions and natural history expeditions that are mounted by the museum, for example.
Mm.
And this idea of the expedition and the romanticism that's like connected to the expedition. So all these things are I guess they're in these newspapers, as well as those travelogues that you would have already come across, or memoirs. But what I don't know what you're doing here is, are you I can't see very clearly when you say the remarks in the description is, these are your notes, is it? Okay.
My notes about what this particular clipping is about.
Right. Maybe I would think in your context, you might also want a separate column that has direct quotes, or actually something that is more about a perceptions or opinions and things like that. Things that people actually sort of like say about, I don't know, hunting or nature or collecting or museums, and these will at least, flesh out what your description about that clipping is about, right? So the clipping is just giving a general overview. Okay, this clipping is about that, but then, what are the interesting things that you can draw out of this information that actually gives you an insight into how people think at the time? So doing these things might be
I
helpful.
have another question, if you don't mind. I mean, obviously, I think I already know the answer, but there's like so many like government files that it's really difficult to read. But then, of course, it's a skill that I need to like develop, lah. And
Let's
basically,
pull
I
one
just
out
need
and
to
have a
read
look.
all of them, lor, right?
Let's pull one out and have a look.
Okay. Hang on, I basically just downloaded, but I haven't gotten into looking at it.
So you find it challenging to read, is it?
Yeah, partly.
Yeah, I still haven't figured out how, short of waiting for someone to transcribe it, you have to learn how to read cursive.
Yeah, okay, I can share this. This is like so, I don't know what I'm reading also.
Yeah. But I think you can be strategic in this occasion. Right? So
it's a report on museum for the year 1887.
okay, yeah, this is yeah. And you also know that a lot of these documents, they're not the full documents, right? So you probably have to make a trip to the archive at some point to actually sort of like find out what are the additional missing pages.
It's really annoying right now because of MCO, they're closed. And there's this appointment system I'm sure you are familiar with, where before going you need to make appointments. And then in some occasions, appointment for the whole month have already been fully booked.
Oh, really? I don't know about the appointment system.
Yeah.
Let everyone know, so that I think Yusra is planning to go to the archive. So maybe you want to share with her.
Yeah. So for like because during this MCO and PKP, the government institutions have introduced the appointment system, including like to make your IC, because I just replaced my IC. So, and then going to like ROS, and also going to Archive. So before going to the archives, you need to make a phone call to make an appointment. And then some people make appointments for 3 consecutive days, 3 consecutive Thursdays, 1 week after another. And yeah, so most of the time, it's fully booked. And if you even got a place to get in, the operation hours is really frustrating, because especially on Fridays, where they take breaks at 12, and then they continue again at like 2:30,
right?
And they close at 3.
Oh.
So and the only time that you have on Fridays especially is, I think, 9 to the lunch hour, and then another 1 hour lunch break.
So don't go on
So
Friday lah.
it's basically like a
Um,
waste of time.
Don't go on Friday lah.
Kan don't go on Friday lah.
Yeah, don't go on Fridays lah. But on other
Mm.
days, it's like, yeah, they also close at 3, so it's pretty early. So after lunch break, you only got like 2 hours, and then the time is not really a problem. The time for you to wait for them to retrieve the materials is the problem.
Mm.
And each people can only take like 10 pieces per request.
So I
But,
think this
mean,
is
that
where you
kinda
have
fair
to.
lah, but
This is where you have to be perhaps a bit more strategic.
yeah,
Right. So like looking at, if I can share my screen, just looking at the OFA lah. Presumably, okay, this is the digital side. It's not all the materials that they have, but just doing a quick search on the word museum. So there's a lot of records, right?
Yeah.
And some of them, of course, the ones that digitized you can download. And again, it's not complete. It's not always complete. But nevertheless, you can sort of like, have a look at, see what is inside. And chances are you find that a lot of these documents are probably useless.
Mm,
It doesn't contribute to your narrative. Estimates,
yeah,
okay, honestly, that's not going to tell you very much. Okay, it's good to know for yourself, but you're not going to use it. But maybe sanctioning Hubbard to engage, in designing the museum is something that is useful. There might be useful information in there. So you can also be more strategic already in how you have sort of, what you choose to sort of like select as important sources, right? As you build up your Excel sheet or whatever, you don't have to, for example, include everything. You can already, even from the title itself, maybe the bombing of the East Wing will be crucial to how you want to end the story about Selangor Museum. And therefore you will probably need this, and you probably have to engage with the text. And then let's see what it says lah. But I think this one is not this is probably just the article. Okay, let's look at one of the boring, where is it? Where's all the old stuff? Let's look at, so like, Haji Omar applies for grant, for example. I think that's pretty much it. You already know what it is. So maybe it's just information that you keep in your head. So if you want to say that, okay, the museum also hired early, have non-European staff, then you can actually sort of like, cite this in your footnotes. But that's all the document serves. And so you don't need to spend so much time trying to decipher what it says, unless it's a very long letter of appeal or whatever that's in there. And you have to look into it and figure out what's in there, right? But let's say I'm trying to look for at least a long one. Where's the one that, the one with Leonard Ray's report? So this is a very stupid system.
yeah. You need to reset to actually use another keyword, search for another keyword.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just gonna simply go into one. Don't have. Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna open it from my computer now.
The archive system, though.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so this is finally. So like something like this is, I think is this the one that, no, this is not his report, but anyway, let's pretend that this is the report lah, right? So you probably know that his report is from secondary literature. His report is already it helps to push the museum committee to sort of rethink their collection strategy, or how they want to sort of like build the institute, how they want to sort of run the institution, right? And maybe that report needs to, but we don't know what that report is about. So you could instead, spend more time trying to sort of like decipher this document and focus on that document instead, and then sort of weed out the unnecessary. So you don't have to read all the reports, because I think the title itself will really tell you like whether you think it's something that is worth looking at or something that isn't worth spending so much time on. And we know that if cursive writing is not a skill that you have in terms of reading, then it will take longer for you to figure out what it actually says. So there's no two way about it. You just have to learn how to read cursive writing, like what you have shared just now. There are reading guides out there, and it takes me at least also a very long time to sort of like figure out what it says. So I'll be very strategic about what I read. I won't read everything. I'll choose, and normally how I choose is I pick the longer messages. So I know the longer ones will tend to have opinions. So the shorter one tends to be more reportage, right? You will come across shorter, files and stuff like that, and they tend to be on expenses and all that, which is good to know. It's also easy to digest, but also inconsequential to the narrative that you want to build. But longer documents then requires more time to sort of like figure out what it says, but chances are it might contain an insight into how they think about a specific issue. And you're basically essentially looking for gossips. Because from gossips, then you're able to spin that gossip into another gossip. Like you're able to spin it into something else, like another story, to drive your story. So you need to find all these sort of like, elements, ingredients. At least for me, I feel that is important. I don't know if that's helpful at all.
Yeah, it's helpful. But of course I need to do it to actually.
Yeah, you try and see.
Mm.
Yeah. So because I personally feel like, it's great that you're doing the spreadsheet and everything, but ultimately when it comes, I also realize increasingly in today's context, what the challenges that we face is not that there's no information, it's that we're going to be dealing with too much information. And how do you distill that information down into something manageable so that we can, how do you be selective in what you draw out from this pool of information so that we're able to craft a compelling narrative out of the data that we have, right?
Yeah, I think I'll just try again.
Do you have other questions about any other concern? Anyone else wants to share anything? Jen?
No, nothing much for me.
What are you?
But I do.
You're working on quite a different approach, right?
But I think what Yusra shared today is helpful for me. Yeah, because I'm stuck at I don't know how to develop the whole writing yet. Yeah, so I guess today's session is still helpful for me. But the problem is I don't really have time to like really sit down and start the writing.
Okay. So why? Because you're teaching now, is it?
Yeah.
Where are you teaching?
A New Era.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Later,
yeah, later
Very
I'll
good.
need to prepare my class as well. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah. Yeah. Okay. Writing. Okay. So the challenge is to find time.
Yeah, for me.
Okay.
Like for the moment now, because I do have some data that I haven't really sit down and write them yet. But also about interviewing.
You need
Now
to
it's a
actually
bit
go on the
stuck.
site, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you tried Zoom
And,
interviews, or it doesn't work with your contact?
Because I'm actually quite I want to shoot a documentary as well because of this work, so I didn't want to use Zoom
Understand.
because of that. But I'll see how a bit, because now it's like everyone I couldn't go out and I couldn't ask for my cameraman to help me. I'll see how, but then now is the problem is I don't really have time, so
Okay.
so I put it aside first.
What's your teaching? Okay, well, since there are quite a number of teachers here, what is your teaching schedule like, and how do you go about it? Maybe other teachers also want to share with Jen about writing. Yeah, you want to start?
Because now for me it's like I'm at the beginning of the class. I have to prepare the whole 14 classes, so it's a bit
That's the
yeah.
busiest time. Okay, understand.
Yeah. So probably afterwards will be okay lah.
Okay.
After I prepare everything. Yeah.
Fatima, Chin, do you want to add anything? Shukri, Chin, Ali? Okay, there's a tendency to define everything to a point that it gets descriptive as opposed to making an analysis. The guidelines suggested will certainly help outline the content first before actual writing. At the moment, I have no specific system. Yes, that's okay. I feel like from ancient times. So when you want to cite, you can just look up. Okay. Okay. Shukri, do you have anything to add? Or Ali?
I just want to voice out that I'm so impressed having witnessed my peers' works, but I think that also would have taken like some time, right, to arrive.
But you use quite a different way as well, and I wonder if you want to share with the group, because I think it's a lot more visual. In a sense. You do take notes, but
Sketch,
you are you sketching. You sketch things, and you want to talk through your process and maybe share with everyone what you do.
I don't know. I don't have anything to share visually now, but sketching is a method as well.
You follow his Instagram lah. 10,000 followers. An influencer.
I mean, surely. Oh yeah, now I realize that surely is a method of visual analysis, right? Oh my god, and observation, and sort of processing that very moment of observing. So that counts, is it?
Yeah.
This is more of a question.
Well, I mean, nowadays I also try to, when I try to get students to do visual analysis, I try to get them to sketch something.
Okay.
I think it helps them to at least think through the component parts of how you put together an image. Right?
Yeah. However, I mean, it's still an interpretation, right? You sort of extract whatever you see, and then, and then you put a filter onto it, and it becomes like something else. I don't know, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, so that I haven't got to like the very systematic, like I think Zotero and all this, like I think this is super intricate and very procedural.
Ali, anything else to add?
But I think
Yusra?
once your sources are getting like, I think that's a problem, right? I think now like there's just too much data.
Too much
You gotta be-
data.
Yeah, there's too much data, and you got to be smart now.
But I think if you put it this way, if you're not encountering too much data, then you really need to sort of like question whether there's any significance to your research topic, and whether whether you're sourcing in the right way, right? So maybe it's a good thing that you're encountering too much data, because that also indicates that you're being very creative about what you consider as data and information, and that you're actually already in the process of connecting things and bringing things together, assembling, a collection of things that you want to sort of like go through and work through.
Yeah, and so at the end, archiving or whatever, your thoughts, etc. I mean, you have no way of running away from using certain apps or whatever to help you, I guess.
So
for some of us who are a bit dinosaurs here,
So the dinosaur people are like it are also not. It's rare, because in the past, because I'm, my training is like at the time where the digital technology just took off, so I'm not always so comfortable using it. I mean, I'll adapt and use as and when I am forced to, or when I need it, or when it's actually immediately useful to me. But otherwise, I won't really sort of like, why fix something when something is not broken, right? So if I can do it otherwise, the way that I'm comfortable doing it, I would have just done it as before. But I know like the previous generation would have, the ones that before the digital sort of like generation would have built equally sort of like complex mechanism for data retrieval. And they use sort of like, they create index cards and all these kinds of stuff, so that they're able to sort of like retrieve information.
Yeah, talking about the index card.
The
book that I shared, the How to Take Smart Notes, actually inspired by this dude called Nicholas Luhmann. He's this okay, basically if I can summarize, he works a 9-to-5 job, but somehow decided to he wants to become a professor, but he doesn't have an academic background. So basically he wrote his thesis. I think he produced 2 theses in a year on top of his 9-to-5 job. I have no idea how he does it, but he did the whole index card and he built this whole system by himself. And I think he's a good, amazing inspiration for anyone who feel like they're not making any progress. So if he can do it, you guys can do it too, because he's basically a dinosaur lah. He write an index card and have that Almario boxes for his cards. And he managed to write everything, and I think we can definitely do it.
Who is this?
Sometimes I feel like I keep giving myself excuses, and when I heard about Nicholas Luhmann, I'm like, wow, I wanna be that.
Apa nama dia? No, who is it? Apa nama?
So let me type his.
Everyone's curious now. Okay. Cool. Thank you. Great. Oh, very nice. Okay. Actually, are there any other questions? Thanks for sharing, Husna. Like all these kinds of, yeah.
Sorry. May I know for the thesis, chapter 1 is what we did in our methodology class. For chapter 2 and chapter 3, how do we form chapter 2? And then how must it relate to chapter 3 for the thesis?
I'm gonna leave that to someone in this class to answer that. how do you guys go about it? How are you guys going about it? Or how do you intend to go about it? Because I've also shared this with everyone. You know, I have my own methods, and I don't think there's a fixed method. So maybe, you know, we can go around if, you know, I'm sure all of you are thinking about it as well. How are you going about this? What do you do after your proposal? What do you want to, how do you think of what?
Perhaps there are a few key topics, or I mean, you have one main topic and then maybe a few key topics that is kind of relating to your proposal, then the chapters kind of, you know, from there where you analyze these topics further. Because everyone's doing different topic, right? So there's no one way. There's no, I don't know, in terms
For
of
me,
the chapters.
chapter 1 is it's got to do with your proposal and all. Chapter 1 and 2 is sort of content for your proposal. So from what chapter 1 would consist of what Simon listed down earlier, and then chapter 2, your literature review.
If you have extensive amount of literature, and if you want to use the literature to expand out to, you know, background historical, say, what's your research on? Khalil writing same thing, right? So for example, in chapter 1, you spell out all your methodology. So chapter 2, if you want to turn it into a literature review, then maybe it can focus on the discourse on Batik or the history of Batik, right? Alongside with the literature review, or maybe on modern art or something like that, or maybe Batik and modern, or how Batik and modern art sort of like the intersection between Batik and modern art. Yeah, Dennis, continue.
Thank you.
And then chapter 3, I'll just go straight into it. Yeah, nothing else.
The best, there's a, so we've been thinking about, we get this question a lot, and these days the cheat sheet that maybe we've been suggesting is that, you know, to always sort of like go back to two things, right? Your problem statement and your research objectives. So if the research objective is in some ways a breakdown of your problem statement, so you need to always figure out what your problem statement is, what is the bloody issue that you are trying to address. And once you figure it out as an issue, the issue is not a topic. So the issue is not a question, the issue is not a statement, the issue is also not an argument, it is a problem, right? As long as you can frame it as a problem, then you know that from the problem, you have an objective to solve, to achieve. That means you want to use those objectives to solve the problem. And you can only have objectives when you have a problem. Otherwise, you can't figure out what the objectives are. And then there are normally 3 objectives that will lead you to formulate 3 questions. And from the 3 objectives and questions and the problem statement, a cheat sheet is then to formulate the research questions as chapter specific. So maybe one research question will be answered in, say, chapter 3 or chapter 2. One research question, chapter 4, research question, chapter 5. That's one way to go about it. I mean, it's not necessary that you follow this, but if you want a more, I guess this is a systematic, a seemingly more systematic way that we've been suggesting and proposing to you know, students these days. For those who find it, you know, difficult to, you know, wrap their head around the fact that you need to narrate your research in so many chapters and in a kind of like in a flow, right? But honestly, the best way is to read more academic books. So I don't know, I know it's not always the easiest things to read and might not be always be the most interesting, but as and when I do read academic books, like, I do pay attention a lot to how, and I don't always read everything, right? It's like everyone here, I think, or I don't know, maybe some of you are more hardworking than me, but I certainly don't read every single page. What I do is I'll make sure to pay attention to their chapter outlines. So I'll look at the content page and figure out what is the flow, and then read the introduction. And most good academic books that are published by university presses, well, legit university presses will normally at the end of their chapter, their introduction chapter, have a chapter outline as well. So they will actually go into detail. In the next chapter, I will sort of like talk about this, blah, blah, blah. And then in the following chapter, and then they will sort of have a way of narrating that gives you an idea how their argument flows through those chapters. I find that very useful in capturing at least the gist of what the book is about, and how all the micro details sort of are able to sort of come together and cohere and align, and how they align with the central argument that the author is trying to make. So unless you read more of this, I think it's a lot of it is like you get it through. A lot of it I got it through sense. So I don't know how to impart a formula, but this is the most formulaic thing that I'm able to think about at this stage. Maybe others have figured out, I don't know, another way of how you think about, how do you sort of like divide the chapter? Please feel free to share if you do.
Thank you, Simon.
But that's how I normally try to, go through it. But I will like, for example, it's like this platform. So I shared with most of you already, right? The Library of the World. So you don't even have to be really interested in all the stuff that they have on it. So just, because this is a platform that has all the academic books on it. So like, for example, just search like, say, maybe I'll look at photography, okay? Okay, let's say there's photography in Shanghai, blah, blah, blah. Okay, and then if I download it, you have a sense of how they normally structure a academic book. And you can see that very pretty. Okay, content, it's skeletal normally. When it comes to books, it's like, okay, you have very big titles and things like that. But it gives you it already gives you a sort of like marker to work with. And from this, you get a sense that, okay, it's related to site and play and placeness, right? And then through placeness, perhaps also thinking about, memory, ideas of representation, and specific techniques such as montage, in order to sort of like create certain kind of like sense of place, right? And then once you figure it out, the general idea, then you can read the introduction. I'll skip the acknowledgement and go straight into the intro, and then I'll figure out, what is the general sort of like story that they're trying to tell. And normally at the end of it, it's quite standard, because at the end of it, so chapters in the book proceed as follows. Part 1, to give you a sense of, how they're going to structure this book. This is particularly useful for me in thinking of the flow. So I would actually read examples of this and think alongside these. So there's a reading group center. You want to talk more about Bacha?
Sure. If you guys want to read, we usually read short texts about like up to 10 pages or something, or we read aloud. We take turns, maybe 2 paragraphs each, and we have conversations about it afterwards. You can check out the Instagram to see what we've been reading. Yeah, we've been reading everything from about Singapore's democracy and allergy to democracy by Cherry and George to China as a capitalist to even thinking about like furniture and reading Siegfried Gideon a little bit more closely. So it's a huge range, but yeah, it's very fun. We read on Discord. All the links are in the Instagram page. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments or insights anyone want to share? Otherwise, I think maybe we're also a bit tired already. So I thought that was quite productive for me at least.
It's really good.
Also hear from all of you and learn about your strategies of coping and also understanding better what are your challenges like. Always very helpful to sort of hear and figure out and know what are the challenges. You know,
Do we want to do this bi-monthly instead of every week?
Do you think that is better?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what does everyone else think? Feel free to also write it in the chat box. Share your thoughts. So you think bi-monthly is better because every week is a bit of a commitment, is it?
Are you suggesting that we are going to share our thoughts and research in this way, like every time we meet, or how?
I'm not sure. Oh, because why is it weekly is because we have this writing thing, right?
Yeah.
Are we still going back to writing? Okay.
So yeah, I guess there are a few questions. So
yeah.
Do we want to continue to do the writing thing? And if not, or if you prefer, a more discussion-centered kind of session such as this, then do we want to do it weekly or bi-monthly or every 3 weeks?
Yeah, I think if it's discussion, then probably 3 weeks once. Yeah.
Makes sense. Maybe sessions like this, monthly for discussion. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, monthly for discussion. So are there any
writing session? Personally, I think we don't have to force ourselves to come out as a group. We can all personally do our own session and just like work ourselves way out. But I don't mind for the discussion to be monthly or bi-weekly.
Okay.
But personal writing, possibly maybe it's more productive to like DM who I want to reach out to and then because my timing, I can't write 10 to 12. So my time is slightly different. Yeah.
Everyone has a different, really different writing sort of schedule. Okay. So should we do? So there is preference towards monthly or bi-weekly. What do you think? Do you need it? Is bi-weekly too frequent?
I think three weeks once is also means basically means monthly like once every month because 1 month has 4 weeks, right?
Yeah. Except that we don't follow the monthly rhythm lah. So up to you. I mean, it does. Well, I have a 3 weekly reading group, so that is definitely something that is. It feels more regular than a monthly one, but it doesn't feel as regular as like a weekly commitment to something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the writing session is like. But anyways,
basically,
so one of them
it's really simple. It's all of us. I mean, it's coming together turning off our mic and just turning off our camera and just doing our writing. So we divide into 2 sessions. We start off with a warm-up session of 40 minutes and then a 1 hour writing session. And then we come together to discuss after that. It hasn't been working that well. I mean, it works for those who are committed to it, but for me personally, I tend to find me using that time to do my other admin work. So but then it's, you know, an issue of sort of like committing on my part to the process, right? So, and understanding now that everyone has very different sort of like writing schedule, maybe it's not such a useful thing. And maybe the Pomodoro kind of like method, we can try different ways to, you know, motivate ourselves to write. And reaching out to each other if you want writing partners. I think that's a great idea. So maybe smaller groups. So I think like what Jen suggests, you can form your own groups. Feel free to use the chat room to form your own groups. Ask anyone else wants to sort of like, you know, write at the same time as you. Anytime, just use the group to reach out to other students. You can just use the chat group, okay? And then we can, let's meet monthly for this discussion. Is that okay for now, or 3 weekly? But I guess the question is, when is the right time? Because is Thursday not good for you?
Some of them. Not good.
Jen, it's not good for you, right? Is it?
Yeah. Probably Wednesday or Thursday, sometime like this will be okay. Depend on my preparation.
And everyone else is okay for Wednesday?
Yeah.
Yeah? There's no, okay, good. So let's do Wednesday, because if we're doing this less regularly, it's also, I can work around, you know, if I have to teach on certain Wednesdays, then we'll work around my commitment, right? So it's fine that it's not like a weekly thing. Okay, so let's
Thank you.
Do Wednesday. But I know that the next, there's a topic that we probably want to address soon, which is about, you know, how to find online sources. And where do we start? How do we start learning how to sort of find sources online, right? Like Yusra, you asked that question in the chat group. So when do we want to run that discussion?
Should be the June 10th, right?
Do we want to wait for a week? Are you okay to wait for, sorry, a month? Or do you want to figure that out pretty soon?
Sounds like it's urgent.
I don't mind that earlier. I mean, yeah.
Sorry?
I don't mind that being earlier.
Okay.
Probably like even next week or in the next 2 weeks.
Even next week is fine.
Yeah,
I don't know
right.
about the rest. Yeah.
I'm fine with that too. I think, yeah, it also helps us to gather more together and get to know each other more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I can, yeah, all right, next Wednesday I have to teach. So I know, wait.
Yeah, next Thursday you have to teach. Yeah. I'll be in your class.
No. It's the following one that I have to teach. Okay, next Wednesday is fine.
Okay.
Next
That
Wednesday.
day, okay. It's a public holiday.
Okay.
Is
Oh,
it?
yeah.
Happy holiday? Really?
Yeah.
What holiday is it?
Wesak. Is it?
Wait, so
So is that okay? No one can go out, right?
No one can go out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Walau
Yeah, it should be
Huh?
right then. Yeah.
well, I mean, can't do anything, so might as well study.
Yes.
Okay. So I will set up something for everyone. Okay. For next Wednesday.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
And meanwhile,
Okay,
let's all
alright.
think about how we were also using online sources and how do we even begin to familiarize ourselves with the landscape of how to find materials online. Okay. Yeah. And yes, I will look at your proposal. When did you send it? Did you just send it today? Okay. Oh, okay. Oops. I will get back to it soon. Sorry, I've been very busy with running 3 classes a week. All right. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thanks.